Hey, 7th grade, what's going on? So we just talked about this. Not everybody's attending class. We got to get more people attending class. But we just talked about these multiplication equations. And you guys have done multiplication equations, plenty of them, but we didn't do them with negatives. So whenever we're multiplying or dividing, a positive times a negative equals a negative, and a negative times a negative equals a positive. All right? So that it doesn't matter which number, it's not like adding and subtracting. It doesn't matter which number is bigger or which number is smaller. Okay? So we write multiplication a little bit different in 7th grade. Like you would normally see, if you wanted to do negative 3 times 4, you would do this, negative 3 times 4. We don't use an x anymore because we have x's in our equations. So we can't use x's for times anymore. So what we do is we either put a big dot or we put parentheses touching the number. Notice there's no negative or positive sign right here. If there was, it'd be adding and subtracting. But this number's touching this, parentheses, so that means you're going to multiply negative 3 times 4. Okay? Same with this one, negative 5 times negative 5. Okay? So, we know that 3 times 4 is 12, right? This is two ways to write the exact same thing. We know 3 times 4 is 12. But what's a negative times a positive? Well, right here, a negative times a positive, doesn't matter what order, is always a negative. And it doesn't, that should be negative 12, sorry. It's not reading very good. So it doesn't matter that the 4 is bigger or smaller. Anytime you have a positive times a negative or dividing, it's going to be a negative, all right? Negative 3 times 4, negative 12. One's negative and one's positive, it's always going to be negative, okay? And then it says if you have a negative times a negative, your answer is always positive. Well, look here, negative 5 times negative 5. What's 5 times 5? 25. And a negative times a negative is a positive 25, right? Same here, negative 5 times negative 5, positive 25, all right? So, how do we take what we just learned and put them into multiplication equations? Well, it's the same thing, all right? So we've done tons of multiplication equations. I'm going to adjust this real quick. So it must have got bumped. All right, so we've done tons of these, right? Draw the line, divide by 3, those cancel out, and you get x equals 4, right? So we've done a ton of these when we were doing cross multiplying. These came up all the time, but none of those have negatives in them. So what if I put a negative in there? Negative 3x equals 12. Well, I'm going to tell you what you're all going to want to do. You're all going to want to add 3. But that's not what we're doing here. We're not going to add 3. Because this is negative 3 times x. So we have to do the opposite of times, which is divide. So negative 3 times x, we're going to divide not just by 3, but by negative 3. Now if I do it to one side, we have to. Yes, I heard you all say it. Through the internet. Divide, do the same thing to the other side, right? All right, so just like before, these cancel out. There's nothing really new here. Only thing that's new is right here. Same with dividing. A positive divided by a negative is what? Negative, all right? So this is going to be 12 divided by negative 3 is going to be negative 4. All right? Positive divided by a negative is a negative. All right? So why are these called multiplication equations if we're dividing? Because this is negative 3 times x. All right? And we need to do the opposite. We always do the opposite, right? All right, good. Let's look at another one. Okay, this one's backwards. Negative 35 equals negative 5m. So we're going to want to add 5, but we don't, right? This is negative 5 times m. So the opposite of times is divide. Divide by what? What do we want to get rid of? Not just 5. We've got to get rid of that minus sign too. So divide by negative 5. All right, those cancel out. All that's left over here is the m. So how many 5s go into 35? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. 7, right? And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So it's just positive S7. All right, negative into negative is a positive. Doesn't matter which one's bigger or smaller, none of that when we're multiplying and dividing. That's adding and subtracting stuff, okay? All right, so that's all there really is to these. This is the important part. It's kind of just like when we were fixing them before, when we had the fix-it step. So that fix-it step works for multiplication and division, all right? So dividing and multiplying by negatives is actually easier than adding and subtracting. You don't have to worry about which number is bigger and whether you should add or subtract or all that. So it's just, you just do it, all right? So I'm going to try some of these today in the discussion, see how we do. And then maybe Wednesday we'll do a full assignment on some of these and see how we do with them, all right? All right, 7th grade, you guys have a great day. Take care.